Welcome to episode 0.
Yes, welcome to episode 0 of a podcast that currently has no name, but we hope to remedy that tonight. I am Daniel Robinson, joined with
Shannon Robinson.
And we are a married couple that's super into Disneyland. And so that's what this podcast is primarily about. You've never worked with me creatively before.
Nope.
So I should explain. So
you need more caffeine?
I do. So generally, my hobby is creating board game content. I do reviews. I do humor videos. And I am incredibly self-conscious about them, about filming or recording anything if there are people around.
You poor
So
thing.
this is a way for me to get to know my wife a little more intimately, in that she gets to see me in the creative process. And there are a lot of pauses where I just stare into space or I ask myself a question that has no answer. This is a podcast about Disneyland, and we're going to be discussing a whole bunch of stuff. But this is episode 0, so we're going to give you a bit about who we are and primarily try to come up with a name tonight.
So I'm older than Daniel by a year and a half. And so this year I turned 36. So we went to Disneyland for Lunar New Year because it was my year, the year of the rabbit. So we, and actually we went sans kids, we have 2, because my mom watched them. So we have 2 kids. We both work full time for a bank.
And we don't live in California.
No, we live close to the Canadian border in Washington.
Yeah, and so I grew up in Southern California, about 20 minutes from Disneyland. My family is still down there, so we generally will go to Disneyland when we go visit my family. That's a brief amount about who we are.
How many times did you go to Disneyland growing up?
Going to Disneyland as a kid, living so close, I went maybe once or twice.
Total.
We were a Knott's Berry Farm family. It was cheaper.
Okay.
It was more conservative. And those are the tickets that we got for Christmas.
But you did go to Disneyland for Halloween one year.
We'll talk more about, and so episode 1, I'd like to talk about some of our earliest memories from Disneyland. And there's a lot, because even though I only went once or twice as a kid, it was pretty impactful, namely because I was so afraid of everything. My biggest concern was I was dressed in full clown makeup. I was probably about 5 years old. And over the loudspeaker, they had announced that at a certain point, you'd have to take off your costume. And I had nothing on underneath my costume. So as a kid, I was worried that I was going to have to walk around with nothing on. So that was one of the many fears that I had that day in Disneyland. What is one of your first memories from Disneyland?
Well, we went to Disneyland 3 or 4 times growing up. I need to look back at pictures because I cannot remember for sure. I went for the first time when I was 7. And like Daniel, I was terrified of all the rides. The only rides I liked were the Teacups and Dumbo. I cried even on Peter Pan, and my mom was like, "What is wrong with you?"
Oh, see, Peter Pan was one of the ones I was okay with.
It was too dark. And my mom tried to be like, "See, you can see the floor." And I think that ruined it for my sister. But she was trying to help me calm down.
I was fine with Peter
think
Pan.
she's amazed that I love Disneyland as much as I do now, considering our first trip and that all I wanted to do was leave.
Yeah, so we have a pretty sordid history with Disneyland, but we'll get into that, I think, a little bit later. Real quick, what is your current top snack and top character that you could meet in Disneyland? And if you could carry anything out of Disneyland or DCA, no rules, what would you carry out? So 3 things.
Like, it doesn't have to be merchandise. It could be anything.
We'll stop it at characters. You can't take a person out. But other than that.
So apparently the name of my favorite food in Disneyland or DCA is not what I remember it being called. So I am curious to go back and try this and see if I just remember the name wrong. But it is the Raspberry Rose Mickey Macaron. I just thought it was the Raspberry Mickey Macaron. So I'm really curious because it says that it's with raspberry rose almond filling and fresh raspberries. And I don't remember the filling being raspberry rose almond.
Was it just raspberry?
No.
I remember there's actual raspberries.
Right, but it was like a purplish creamy color. There's a picture that just popped up.
Oh.
So I'm kind of curious to see if they slightly changed it or if they changed the name or if I am just completely misremembering. What's your favorite food?
Mine's the churro toffee. right now. Pains me that it's $8 a square, but it's
Yeah.
essentially just butter and sugar and cinnamon,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very good, melting in your mouth. And none of our kids like it, and you're just kind of
No.
okay on it, right?
It's pretty good. Just for the price,
It's
I have a
hard to
hard time.
justify for me alone to be eating it at $8, but that's something that I really do look forward to every time we go.
And what would you carry out
Um,
of Disneyland if? So money's no object.
Oh, wait, no. So the second question is, who's your favorite character to see in the park? My favorite character to see in the park is Stitch. Stitch is... because Lilo and Stitch is becoming one of my favorite all-time Disney animated movies, and he's just very energetic and funny looking. He's got one of the most fun-looking costumes in the park. And we got to meet him at the Disney Visa character meet and greet.
We did.
And it's about the most starstruck I've ever been to see a character.
Yes,
we didn't have our kids either.
You were quite awkward. It was very cute.
I was so happy.
Hi, Stitch.
Scared that poor man or woman inside that costume. But that's okay.
My favorite character to meet in the park, I'm going to say Minnie Mouse, just because of when we took our second son for his first time. He had met Darth Vader the day before, so he was terrified of meeting any character.
And that was a surprise character too.
Yeah.
We didn't know who it was.
Darth
who it was
Vader?
going to be. Darth Vader was the same thing, I think.
I don't think so.
Because
you knew who he was.
The Visa signature was...
Oh, was that Visa signature?
I think
I wasn't there.
Yeah, it was the Visa signature thing too. And I asked them, I was like, is it going to be a nice character? And they're like, we can't say.
And that was in Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in DCA the next day, and we went to do the surprise character that they have there in the Hollywood back. So our second son is just terrified that he's going to meet another scary character. And we walk around the corner, and it was Minnie Mouse, and just the relief that poured over his face and his whole body. And he just started jumping up and down. And
it could have been any of the any character that wasn't Darth Vader, I think he'd have been thrilled with.
But I think Minnie Mouse was his favorite because so our second son is adopted, and we adopted him at a little over 3 years old, and we went to Disneyland when he was a little over 3.5 years old. So he was new to America, but well aware of Disney from what we could tell. And so when he came to the States, he was introduced to a lot more Disney things, and just latched onto Minnie and Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just over the moon to be meeting Minnie, and I'm pretty sure he thought that was like the Minnie that he saw in shows.
Yeah, and it's, I think, my favorite professional photograph we have of our family at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain why?
So you know how when you meet a character, you can get photos, and so we did a family photo with Minnie, and so we're all standing there, and they took some nice shots, and then I was holding our son's hands, and he got so excited that he ended up jabbing his thumb into his eyeball for a picture, and I was trying to hold his hands down, but he was just so excited I was having a hard time doing that, and he actually got his thumb into his eyeball. So we have a wonderful family picture with Minnie with our son jabbing his eyeball.
Just full on straight in the middle of the eyeball.
Yeah. So that's one that often makes it into slideshows or into calendars or things like that when we are remembering that Disneyland trip.
Okay, now if you could carry something out of either one of the parks, physically carry out.
Like I can't bring a truck in to help.
No, it's like, do you remember on TV when they let kids have 10 minutes in Toys R Us?
Yeah.
To just grab whatever they want? Same sort of concept.
But just one thing. One thing.
I can start.
Because what I would want to take is the flower Mickey Mouse. But I would need a truck.
The whole one in the front?
In the front, yep. And I would come put it in our front yard.
That's a lot of individual flowers.
So that's obviously not within the parameters of what you just said. So I'm going to have to
think you can.
I have to rethink this.
Well, I would take the Spider-Man robot in DCA. The one that flies above.
I thought you said it couldn't be the size of a character.
I did say it couldn't be a character, but the spirit behind that was that you can't take people because they're not items.
But you could take something the size of a character.
Yeah, I'm going to take I'd take that Spider-Man robot.
I think I would take one
Fling it
of
right into
the
our neighbor's
main
yard.
street cars then.
And just drive it out?
Yeah, why not?
That's a good idea.
How cool would that be?
Which one would you take?
I would probably take the one, the oldest car that they have, the one that
Is
doesn't
that the fire
have
engine?
I think so.
Okay.
It doesn't have the roof on it.
You wouldn't take a horse-drawn thing.
No, I don't want a horse. I've had enough interaction with horses.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the last part of episode 0, our podcast title, which we currently don't have. My biggest disappointment, I've written down some ideas for podcast name, is that my biggest disappointment is that Toot Sweets podcast won't work because Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Because you keep saying sweet toots. So
the biggest shock of my life was finding out that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was not a Disney movie.
that was the biggest shock of your life, huh?
The biggest shock of my entire life. You've got the
You've
Sherman
had a
Brothers.
very mundane life.
No, I just expect everything. The Sherman Brothers did the music. Starred Dick Van Dyke. There's 2 British children in it. There's a magical flying car. I guess the dead giveaway was the child catcher, which was even a little bit too far for Walt Disney at the time.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, my number 1 pick, the Toot Sweets podcast, is out.
So my number 1 pick is Living in a Fantasyland.
Living in a Fantasy Land, and that's from your Disneyland mug.
That's from my Disneyland mug. It has the Disneyland castle on one side in gold, and on the other side it says, "Oops, Living in a Fantasyland."
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go down a list of my tops, since I've been hyperfixating on this for a while?
Or should you just read all of them?
There's a lot. But my top picks right now is Mandatory Magic to Disneyland and Beyond.
No.
I don't love that. Arms and Legs Inside the Podcast.
Ew.
It's because it's like a ride.
That's weird.
It's like keep your arms and legs inside the podcast.
It's usually hands.
Is it?
Hands, arms, and legs inside the
podcast,
vehicle.
Okay. Magic
at all times.
Magic Not Guaranteed. These are all boring names. I mean, the hands inside. Okay. I'll run this by you, and you've heard it, but the Fat Mouseketeers podcast.
No.
Because
I know
Fat
we're
M,
overweight, but I don't want that.
Fat M is an acronym. F for Fantasyland, A for Adventureland, T for Tomorrowland, and M for Main Street USA, the 4 main areas of Disneyland when it opened. Fat Mouseketeers.
No.
So that's also pretty high on my list.
That's been vetoed.
Snick Snack Snorum is one of the spells that Merlin does in not the Wizard of Oz, in The Sword and the Stone. Snick Snack Snorum podcast. On the tail of that is another spell of his, the Higgitus Figgitus podcast.
No one's going to know this.
No one needs to know it. It's a silly, fun name. My YouTube channel is Plumpy Thimble.
Yeah, so we're definitely not doing the Fat Mouseketeers.
So, yeah. Our oldest son, when he found out that the Toot Sweet podcast was out, said the Toontown Toots podcast. So that's also on the list.
So when we went over favorite snack, I decided to go with macaron because I decided to put this in a different category. But my favorite drink at Disneyland is the mint julep. And so we've got Tiana's Palace coming.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't ran this past you yet.
Okay.
Mint juleps are returning to the beignet counter.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they're going to call it the same thing, which
they're not going to change it to.
I don't remember
change the name of mint juleps, right?
No, but the place where you get them.
Oh, the mint julep bar?
Yes, thank you. So I don't know if they're going to change that name or not, but it's Tiana's Palace is going to be next door. So it could be something along the lines of Tiana's mint juleps and beignets, or Tiana's mint juleps, or
the podcast would be Tiana's mint juleps and beignets?
Yeah.
I feel like we'd really have to be heavily food focused.
Oh, fine.
I think it's a great idea, though. I love it, dear. I think it's the best. Mouse spouses.
That's weird.
So this is another one.
Especially since you're wearing Oswald ears right now.
I do have Oswald ears on.
I only came down with, I am wearing something Disney. It's
you are.
all the Disney Castles shirt.
See, and I'm in my $90 Spirit jersey, and my Oswald hat. Drinking a mint julep.
And
It's
it
a
is the
mojito
black
out of my
Spirit jersey with the gold Disneyland lettering.
We got our New Orleans Square souvenir glasses at the French Market.
No, at the Mint Julep Bar.
Did we get these at the Mint Julep Bar?
Yes.
But at the French Market, right? It's the Mint Julep Bar at a restaurant that's no longer in Disneyland.
That's
what if they
true.
don't have these anymore? Our stainless steel souvenir mint julep glasses.
So New Orleans Square was established July 24 of 1966. It wasn't there when it opened.
No. New Orleans Square wasn't.
I had no
That's
idea.
what you just said that, huh?
Yeah.
I was reading my notebook.
This is life. This is how it... What did you say?
New Orleans Square was not there. Was Frontierland in Disneyland on opening day?
I think so, because my dad remembers it.
So it has. So I'm sorry, I goofed up. Then it would have to be the Fat Mouseketeers.
Yeah. Or what about TAF?
TAF. I went through a bunch of acronyms using those, and Fat Mouseketeers is the best one.
No, FAFT.
I put Sleepy Beauty, but I don't know why.
That's weird.
Beignet Buddies, Bippity Boppity
No,
Podcast.
okay. If you're gonna do beignet buddies, then we'd have to be food focused
I'm
too.
super into alliteration.
Oh, I know, but I'm just reminding you of what you said a little while ago.
Oh, I was trying to figure out why on earth I put FAQs on here. It's because it was going to be FAQs. Q's being like a line. Queueus. I don't think that really works.
No,
The Jolly Holiday
We could do something with
Podcast.
the Main Street Electrical Parade, because that is probably one of my favorites. We went actually last July to see Daniel's family, but I was like, we have to fit in one day of Disneyland because the Electrical Parade is back, and this could be its last time in Disneyland ever.
Ever?
And I don't know. They made it sound like it, and so I used that as a reason to have to go to Disneyland.
That was a good enough reason. It was fun to see. Look, let me just, I've got a whole list here. I'll read through them. Stop me if anything catches your fancy, okay? California Adventure Dreaming. Down to Disney. Disneyland Daydreams. Fast Pass Podcast. Fat Mouse.
Fast what?
Fast Pass Podcast.
Because you said fast past. And I
I'm
was like,
sorry. Fast Pass Podcast. Fat Mouseketeers. Epcast, but I've never been to Epcot, so.
no, we can't do Epcot. We're Disneyland.
Mouse Ears and Matterhorns.
So far, I like Disneyland Dreaming and...
You mean California Adventure Dreaming. It's a take on the song California Dreaming by the Mamas and the Papas.
Of course you would know that. Or you said Matterhorn and Mouse Ears?
Matterhorn and Mouse Ears. No, Mouse Ears and Matterhorns. Mouse Men. Castles in California.
Mouse Men?
Yeah.
Really?
Listen, there's...
Really?
I've also got female bandits on here, but I haven't mentioned that yet. Like in Robin Hood. And Prince John's like, female bandits, poppycock.
You'd have to have the whole thing, or
I
no
know.
one would know what
also,
you meant.
I'm not a girl, so...
You're really good at remembering references to things, but I am not.
Dear Disney Diary. Disney parks are better than the National Parks podcast.
Oh my goodness, no.
People would remember it, maybe.
No, it's too long.
Yesterday, Tomorrow, and Fantasy Podcast. The Jungle Cruise Podcast. Pirate Island Podcast. Adventure Parks Podcast. Not Studio Land Adventure Podcast. Monorails and Merry-Go-Rounds. Or Mouse Ears and Monorails, if we wanted to go with another Mouse Ears thing. The Pirate and the Princess. Unfortunately, that was taken, we found out.
I like the Mouse Ears and Matterhorn. I know you said it the other way around, but Matterhorn and Mouse Ears just doesn't flow.
Mouse Ears and Matterhorns?
Yeah, but I don't know if I love it.
I like it. That was one that I forgot was on the top of my list.
And I do wear mouse ears quite a bit.
Yeah. Assembly Line Whimsy. Mandatory Magic. Magic Not Guaranteed. Practically Perfect Podcast, already taken by a group that runs a nanny podcast. Elephant Ear Graveyard. Don't Fear the Yeti. It's a Small Cast. Arms and Legs Inside the Podcast. Practical Whimsy. The Toot Sweet Podcast, unfortunately won't work. Wearied Wanderlust. Sleepy Beauty. Mouse Spouses, Beignet Buddies, Bippity Boppity Podcast, FAQs, Snick Snack Snorum, Higgitus Figitus, Jolly Holiday, Running Away with the Railway, Living a Fantasyland.
No, living in
a Fantasyland, I'm sorry. The Yellow Tab Podcast.
What does that mean?
I don't know if that's right. Yellow Tab. And you know how they make you pull on the yellow tab on the rides to check if your seatbelt's buckled?
Yeah.
Great Moments with Daniel and Shannon.
And you just went to see that Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln for the first time.
I was very excited.
In 2023.
And I really enjoyed it. Walking in Walter's Wonderland.
I don't know.
I'm kind of leaning towards Mouse Ears and Matterhorns.
Walter Elias Disney.
Walter Elias. So Walking in Walter's Wonderland would work.
Yeah.
Do you like that or no? I don't know if I love that.
I don't either. Walking in Waltz. What was it? Wonderland?
Wonderland. But winter is a 2-syllable word. Can you make Walt 2-syllable?
Walt Disney.
That's 3-syllable.
I know.
Mouse Ears and Matterhorns. I really like that. It's got the alliteration.
But it can't be Matterhorns. It's Matterhorn.
Mouse Ears and Matterhorn?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
I think we can go plural because there are Matterhorn macaroons. There's Matterhorn merchandise. There are multiple Matterhorns in Disneyland. Maybe if even though there's just one physical giant Matterhorn. Mouse Ears and Matterhorns.
No other parks have Matterhorns, though, do they?
What was the other one? Mouse Ears and Monorails?
Now, you can pluralize that because there's 2 monorails on the same track in Disneyland, and the other parks have them.
Matterhorn's such a fun word, though. What do you like better, Mouse Ears and Monorails or Mouse Ears and Matterhorn?
I don't know that I love either. I'm sorry. I don't do the creative side.
Neither do I.
Let me review someone else's work and tell them what they did wrong for my job. So creativity is not my forte.
It works out. My job is literally creating digital content. Your job is literally reviewing and pointing out errors in other people's stuff professionally. Yeah, so I think we're settled on the podcast name, and you'll find out what it is next episode when we start the podcast with it.
Yep. We'll
I don't know. Do you have any
few discussions after this?
Do you have any ideas on one? Any other suggestions?
Now that you've asked me to think of a word that starts with M, I won't be able to at all.
Mistress. Miska Mouska Mickey. What does he say? Miska Mouska Mickey Mouse? No.
I don't know. I didn't watch that.
Miska Mouska Mickey Mouse. No, that's not it. What was it? How many times did Bruce watch that stupid show?
Mickey Mouse Clubhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember Toodles.
Who we saw in Mickey Mouse's Runaway Railway.
We did?
Yeah. He was in the line, I think.
She?
Toodles is a boy.
Toodles is a girl.
Toodles isn't a girl.
Toodles is a girl. Toodles is
Toodles?
Toodles.
Toodles is named after one of the lost boys in Peter Pan.
Toodles has to be a girl.
Toodles is a boy name. If we have a third son, his name's going to be Toodles Robinson. I don't think Toodles has an actual gender.
It's voiced by a man. It doesn't even say anything. Other names, Mr. Toodles.
Mr. Toodles.
Guess our oldest son has always said she when talking about Toodles.
Bobsleds and blue milk.
Oh.
The Matterhorn bobsleds and blue milk from Star Wars Land.
Isn't it Bantha milk?
I think the blue milk is from Bantha milk. I think the green milk is from a different animal. The Last Jedi, when Luke's milking that big giant sea cow thing. Blue milk, bare necessity. No, bare necessities and blue milk.
I kind of want to drop the and.
Bare necessity, blue milk?
No, I mean in the title in general.
Matterhorn mice. Okay. Well, I guess we'll leave a surprise for you on episode 1. Hopefully this was a tolerable episode 0 where you got to know a little bit about us before we jump right into the meat and potatoes of our Disneyland, yet unnamed Disneyland podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We love you all.
We don't know them.
Well,
we will love you all. We hope you love us.
All right.
We don't love them all. We're happy you're
That's
here.
a good point. We don't know necessarily who's listening.
No.
There might be some real sickos.
Well, that's not what I meant. I don't just love random people.
Thank you for listening. Even if you are a sicko, we appreciate the download. All right. Well, we will decide on a name, and we'll come back with episode 1. I guess we can't record episode 1 until we have an actual name.
All right.
But when we do, a little sneak peek. Next time we'll be talking a little bit about Downtown Disney, some of our earliest memories of Disneyland, and more discussions about food in the park. Oh, we don't have any social media yet because I can't start getting social media accounts until we have a name. All right. We will see you next time.